Hello everyone, you're tuned in to today's PIR live event with Dr. Jeff Orchard, who is an associate professor in the Faculty of Mathematics at the University of Waterloo. My name is Anne, and today we'll be discussing math with Dr. Orchard. So hello everyone watching on the live stream. I'd like to remind you that you can tweet your questions to Dr. Orchard using the hashtag AskPIR. And if you have room in your tweet, also include your name or your city so we can give you a shout out when we ask your question. So I look forward to getting to those questions in just a moment. But first, I'll turn it over to our special guest, Dr. Orchard. Thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you start by telling us a bit more about your research and maybe some concepts in math?
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me and asking me. I'm always happy to talk to youngsters about math and how math and computers are used really in the real world. So I'm a professor of computer science, and so I use math and computers a lot to do lots of different things. I teach it to young adults. I'm right now teaching the people fresh out of high school how to program computers, and that's half my job. The other half is doing research. So I'll tell you just a little bit about my research. One thing I do a lot of is try to figure out how this works. I don't know if you can see what that is. It's a brain. So a lot of my research, it's a brain, yeah. I took it out for the day, so it's a little painful. Trying to figure out how that works. And it's a lot of mathematics and computer science to try to figure out how all the neurons in your brain make you do what you do. I think it's really fascinating, especially because everyone has a brain. I also have done research on image processing. So basically how to use math and computers to understand images or pictures and make them look better. So I'd like to show you a quick demonstration if I could. I'm going to share my desktop and show you some images. Share, so I think you should be seeing my desktop now.
Yep.
Okay. So here's a picture on a computer. It's from a game called Minecraft. You maybe haven't heard of it. Maybe your students haven't heard of it. It's a really obscure game. My kids play it all the time, and I think it's a pretty cool game. So this is a picture on a computer. Now a picture is made up of pixels. So if you zoom way in, you can see it's actually a bunch of little squares. And each square is called a pixel. And each pixel has its own color. So if I bring up this thing here, it tells you what color you're pointing at. Every color is a combination of red, green, and blue. So that's what these three things mean here, these three numbers, red, green, and blue. And it tells you for each pixel you're pointing at how much red there is, how much green, how much blue. So if I look at this light blue background, you can see there's, so that the maximum is 255. So maximum brightness would be 255. Minimum brightness would be 0. So all those numbers are between 0 and 255. This background here, you see it's got a red 134, quite a bit of green 196, and blue is the highest, 227. That's because we're pointing at a pixel that looks kind of blue. If we go to the brown one, it's not much blue, not much green, but more red. So every pixel is actually a combination of those three different colors. So let me show you, I can split this image into three different channels, we call them, color channels. So here's the blue one. Looks like that. So if I remove all the red and green from this picture, it looks like that. Here's the green part and the red part. So this color picture is actually a combination of this red, green, and blue part all put together. You can see I put a red square, a green square, and a blue square in the original image. You can see the red square shows up in the red one, but the blue and the green show up black in the red image because there's no red in that green and blue part. They're just zeros. So let me just put these together for you and prove to you that original image is actually just the combination of red, green, and blue. So I'll put the red and the blue together first of all. And I get this image. So you can see it's looking more like the original image, but there's green missing. So let's add the green in as well. Image calculator, we'll add that one we just had, plus the green, and voila. There's our our original
Oh,
image
cool.
reconstituted from the 3 different color channels. So it's kind of neat that all images are actually just tables of numbers. They're all just numbers, and so because they're numbers, you can apply all sorts of different mathematical operations to them. You can add them up, and you can subtract them. And if you want to remove some red from this image, I could just take the red part, divide it by 2, and then put those colors together, and what we'd end up with is a less red image. So lots of neat things you can do. If you want, later on I can show you some medical imaging data where I've had my brain scanned, and I can show you a picture of my brain. But
That would be cool. All right.
So back to you.
Thank you for that introduction and showing us, how colors use math on computers. And it was interesting to see. I noticed when all 3 colors were combined, the picture sort of became lighter, it seemed. So the sum sort of made it brighter in a way. Very
That's
cool.
right. That's because in your eyeballs you actually have 3 color sensors. So when all 3 colors are present in what you're looking at, your eyeball gets more light, and so you can see more. It's like brighter. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So we actually have a question on Twitter from some students at John A. Leslie Public School. Shout out to them today. Their question is, how was the math system that most of the world now uses created?
Wow. How was the math system created?
A math history question.
Yes. I don't know if I have a very good answer for that. It's a very interesting question. I guess there'd be a lot of history. The ancient Greek and like the Greeks seem to have been using mathematical ideas a long, long time ago, as well as I think Persians. Like there was math a long time ago in like the Middle East and in China. So it sort of started, I think, in a lot of different places at the same time. But basically, it's just an observation that certain rules of logic apply no matter where you are. And so if you think carefully about those rules of logic and how numbers go together, you sort of naturally come up with these conclusions that 1 + 1 = 2, no matter where you are, and from there things just start to build and build and build.
Yeah, so maybe going back to the color coding and how color uses numbers to be created, how did somebody come up? We have our class, our grade 5 class.
Hello. Hey, good morning. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties we had to work through.
That's quite all right. We're happy you're with us now.
Okay, can you see everybody okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent.
Hello.
Good. Juan, did you want to
Right.
take over?
This is me.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you.
This-
We have Dr. Orchard and his skeleton, and he also has his brain with him today. Maybe now that we have the grade 5s with us, Dr. Orchard, could you show us show us your brain and the medical imaging you mentioned earlier?
Okay, so I was saying before that. Okay, let me share my desktop. This takes just a second. Share desktop. That should do it. Okay, so now I think you can see my desktop, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I was showing before.
Yay!
Yeah. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, Minecraft.
So this is a picture. I mean, it's Minecraft, and many of you have played Minecraft before, but it's on a computer. It's on a computer, and if you think about what pictures are on a computer, it's actually a whole bunch of little squares with different colors. And so each of those squares has different numbers. So if you look, let me just bring this up here. See these numbers here, red, green, and blue? So every pixel here, every little dot, square is called a pixel, has a different set of numbers, 3 numbers to tell how much red, how much green, and how much blue. And as I move around, the numbers change. So really a picture is just a big, giant list of numbers, big table of numbers. So I've done work, some of my research is in medical imaging, so I've got some pretty cool pictures of my brain. So this is my brain, like really my brain. I went in an MRI scanner, and it doesn't hurt at all, but they can take pictures of slices through your body. So this is what my brain looks like if you were to remove my scalp and my eyeballs and everything. So again, see, if you look up here, when I put the cursor over, it's 209, this pixel is 183, this pixel is 0. So it's, again, just a big table of numbers, and as many slices, 113 slices of pictures through my head, through my brain. And I can do something really cool. I can draw, using math and computers, I can draw like photographs as if they took my brain out and took a picture of it. So let me just clean this up a little bit here.
Wow.
So that's sort of like what my brain would look like if you pulled it out of my skull. And I think that's pretty cool that the magic of math and computers can build an MRI scanner and can actually get the images and pictures like this that make it look like, it can draw a picture of my brain.
That's very cool. Did the grade 5s have a class for Dr. Orchard?
Just a second. I bet we do. Grade 5. Does anybody have a picture that they would like to, a question I'd like to ask?
Yeah.
Anything at all? Nobody? David?
No.
No?
Oh, okay. Well, we can come back to it. I wanted to ask Dr. Orchard maybe if you had any advice for students who are interested in math and maybe looking for a challenge. Anything they can do?
So, I was interested in math when I was young, although I didn't think I would become a math professor or a computer science professor. But I guess I really liked, kind of like math. I wasn't crazy about it. It seemed sometimes it's kind of tedious, don't you think? But I learned my number facts. In fact, my dad was a high school math teacher. So when I was behind on my multiplication tables, he stepped in and made sure I learned them. So make sure you keep up with your math because it starts to pile on top of each other and gets more and more and more. Another thing is computers. There's a lot more you can do with computers than just play Minecraft. Minecraft, I would say, is a pretty fun game. It's like Lego, right? Lego on a computer. But there are lots of other things you can do. One thing I think is really fun is called Lightbot or Scratch. There's a couple different programs. You played Scratch?
Yeah.
Is it fun?
Expert.
Yeah.
Dr. Orchard.
You're experts. Excellent. So I think that sort of way of thinking is good for math, and that helps you sort of think of the world in a very clear and algorithmic way. So those sorts of things, programming and mathematics, kind of go together. Another thing about math is drawing pictures. A lot of people think math is about numbers and calculators and stuff. Actually, it's a lot about pictures. So here's a page from my research journal, and I draw lots of pictures. A lot of what I do in mathematics, a lot of what we do in math, is actually pictures and visualizing and geometry. So, don't think about math as just all numbers. It actually, once you get higher up, it's a lot of geometry and being able to visualize shapes in your head and how they connect together, things like that.
Yeah, very cool. You know what? I actually have a question for the grade 5s because I've never heard of Scratch. Can somebody tell me what that game is?
Oh, wow. Who's going to weigh in?
It's
okay,
fun.
Emma, big voice. Emma, big voice.
Scratch is a program where you can create computer games and program them. You can program everyone else's stuff. And you can also play everyone else's games too.
Oh, wow. So you can program your own games.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to let Riley come over now. Riley, come right over and scooch down like Jaden so the camera can see you. Can we see Riley?
Riley, duck down.
All right, so Riley's going to add to Emma's comment.
You also
Hi, Riley.
can do things where you make a script and then when they press a certain button, it'll move that way. And then you can make like questions, and if they hit yes and if they hit no, what happens? And there's like backgrounds and a bunch of different characters. So it's really cool.
That sounds
Christopher, up you go. Really close.
guys.
Is it hard? Did you have trouble learning it, or was it pretty easy?
What do you think, Christopher? Was it easy?
It was kind of hard because sometimes you would kind of skip steps because you have to do everything or it won't really work.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky, that's right. And once you get the hang of it, it's pretty fun.
And right now, Dr. Orchard, we are creating simple animated labeled diagrams to learn about the parts of the brain, or we're creating simple games where the object of the game is to achieve a certain objective that will teach you the name of the part of the brain or the function of that part of the brain. So the
That is
students are
so
working
cool.
those applications right now, and
So what are
they
some names? What are some parts you're labeling?
He's got some parts, guys. He can give us some ideas. Who else can weigh in? Let's have someone different. Who else can tell us? Katie, can you tell us about the parts that you've been labeling? Come on up here close, sweetheart. Really close. On your scratch game, what have you labeled on your scratch game? What's something that you have created? A little closer to Jaden. Sweetheart, can you see yourself? There's Kaylee.
That's Kaylee.
Hi, Katie.
I've labeled the frontal lobe, the temporal
yes.
lobe, occipital lobe. I kind of forget, but
The forgetting.
Forgetting lobe.
I've got one of those. Very
That's a
cool.
LiDAR.
And do you know what part of your brain is used for seeing?
Everybody?
Occipital. It's right at the back. Isn't that weird that your eyeballs are at the front, but your seeing happens at the back? Who knew?
yeah.
So there's a question on Twitter sort of related to that. They want to know how much of our brain do we use when we do math, and maybe what part of our brain is involved with doing math.
Ooh, we can answer that. Who's got that grade 5?
Oh, good.
Jenna, let's have Jenna. You weigh in, Jenna.
Well, I think it would be at the front, because the front is where you do thinking and planning.
So the frontal lobe. And how much do we use, everybody?
100%.
100%.
That's right. 100%. And in fact, I think you're right. The frontal lobe would do some of the things like logic, like 1 + 1 = 2. That's something you learn and you remember. But there are parts at the back in your visual stream, back in your parietal lobe, that are involved in visualizing things. Like I said, math is a lot of picturing stuff and moving it around in your head and trying to see it from different angles and geometry. A lot of that happens in the parietal lobe. Good question.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do the grade 5s have a question for Dr. Orchard?
No.
Maybe something to do with your
I have a question
brain
for
labeling?
you.
Ah.
Where are you?
Where are we, grade 5?
Simcoe, Ontario, Canada. I don't think you can understand the
But grade 5.
School in Simcoe, Ontario.
Okay, tell
Simcoe.
Dr. Orchard about us, though. We're not just one school. What's unique about our class? Can you tell them that? Luke.
We're in Richmond.
Well, what's that
Awesome.
We're a
So,
whole bunch of schools together. We're really small.
so what do? You take a bus all together in one day and go to the same school for one day?
Yeah. Different schools and different buses every Wednesday.
Some like
Every Wednesday.
Yeah. Every Wednesday for grade 5s, grade 4 it's Monday. Grade 6 it's Thursday. And grades 7 and 8 alternate on Tuesday.
Wow, that seems like a pretty cool thing to be able to do.
Is it cool, grade 5?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll bet a lot of you are pretty good at math.
Yeah. No, not really. I'm the best.
Awesome. Yeah, it's not the only thing. I mean, it's also important to be good at reading and writing and being able to run around and move and things like that. Those are all important. In fact, exercise helps your brain quite a lot, gets the blood flowing through it, and helps you think better.
So, Dr. Orchard, our next focus as we go through our study of the brain, ultimately we want to try to arrive at some inquiry questions about why humans make the decisions that they make. Why do we think we need that new iPod, but we really don't? Why we buy the certain types of chips or candy or clothing? How media influences us. These are really huge questions. We're not sure if we'll end up right at those answers, but we're trying to understand how the brain works so we can try to understand what influences our decisions.
Yeah, that is such a cool question. I've got another one for you. Why do we like music? What's up with music? And why do we laugh at jokes?
That's a good
question.
one. Yeah.
These are really deep questions.
It's funny. How do we know? Like, something funny to me isn't funny to you people.
No.
And I don't find, some of the things you laugh at to be really funny.
Because they're older.
But we laugh. We all love to laugh.
That sounds like a really neat unit. I wish I was there, studying the brain with you guys.
Come on down anytime, Dr. Archie. The door's wide open.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Orchard, going back to those questions, though, it's probably pretty complex, but is there a type of math that could explain why we think a certain way, why we like what we like? Is that part of your research?
Sort of, yeah. It's basically trying to figure out what kind of computations the brain is doing. So those questions about why do we like eating sugary foods, and why does it feel good to win a game and not feel good to lose a game? And there's a lot of chemistry, actually, and a lot of it seems to come down to a couple chemicals called dopamine and serotonin. And so when you win something, when you try to do something and you achieve it, your brain gets certain neurons fire, and you get some dopamine. And dopamine feels good to you; it makes you happy. And so a lot of our behaviors seem to be geared towards giving ourselves more dopamine. So some things that give us dopamine aren't necessarily good for us. Like, for example, there are some drugs that feel really good, but they basically hijack the motivational system of your brain, and all you want to do is that drug, and you'll just forget everything else, eating and just do everything you can, spend all your money, your life savings to get that drug because it feels good. So we have to sort of check ourselves every now and then to make sure that what we choose to do, we're choosing for good reasons, not just because it feels good.
Does chocolate fit in here, Dr. Orchard?
Well, luckily, chocolate has, you have to eat anyway, right? And sugar is good for you as long as you don't eat just sugar. So, hey, I'm on board with chocolate.
Oh, good. Dr. Orchard, Riley has a question over here. Riley, can you move over? Okay, come close so we can see you. Okay, Riley? This is Riley, Dr. Orchard.
Hi, Riley.
I know, why you want, some of the junk food that you want, because we read an article about this, that it's your gut bacteria that tells you that you want the junk food. So the more you eat the healthy, the more you'll crave the healthy. So it's your gut bacteria that's telling you that you want the junk food.
Because the more you eat, that's what your stomach's used to digesting?
Yeah.
Oh.
I see. Right. Yeah, I guess it's quite amazing. There's a lot of scientists are discovering a lot about your gut bacteria, and lots of things are kind of surprising. I've heard recently, that most of the cells in your body's made of cells, right? Most of the cells in your body aren't actually yours. They are gut bacteria, which I think is amazing. Most of the cells in your body are actually bacteria. So it's important. They're important to you. It's important to feed them. They do need sugars and things. They also need things like roughage, like carrots and celery and raw vegetables. They like those things. And when they get what they need, they give you things like vitamin K and other things that you need.
So talk to us more about serotonin. Where does that come from? Is it made in the brain, Dr. Orchard?
Yes, it's made in the brain, and so it's also related to the reward system. So when things are going your way, when something good happens, something surprising happens, like you get a surprise birthday present or something, your brain gets a little bit of serotonin, and it's basically that's what it means for your brain to be happy, is to have some serotonin. There are some diseases where the serotonin is not there, and that's some types of depression are caused by your brain not having the right amount of serotonin. So sometimes when people are depressed for a long time, it's simply because the chemistry in their brain is a little bit off, and sometimes there's some ways to fix that.
We watched a video, Dr. Orchard, about research that's being done about stimulation on what part of that brain was it, guys? What was the name of it? Riley?
RTPJ.
RTPJ. Who's got the big word? Jenna, go girl.
Right temporal parietal.
Right temporal parietal junction. And we watched how...
Right temporal parietal junction.
Now, where is it, guys? Point to it. Where is it on your head? Right side,
Right above
remember?
your right ear.
Like right above
Right
your ear.
Up here, I guess, somewhere.
Would you agree, grade 5?
Yeah.
So we found out that if you could impact that area with a small magnetic pulse, electrical pulse, that you could impact individuals making a moral judgment in what we've researched. We also found out that same stimulus delivered to the, what part brain, guys? What part? Frontal cortex. What is it? The emotions, remember? That can also alleviate some symptoms of depression in a third of the subjects.
Wasn't there one about pain?
And pain as well.
I've heard of that study. That's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing that... Go ahead.
We're looking to come up with some simple experiments that will... Of course, we can't do that sort of experiment, but because nobody's parents will give me permission.
No.
But we want to come up with some simple experiments. Maybe you can give us some ideas that help us to show how humans make choices, and maybe to come at some of the reasons behind that. Adler had a good experiment idea. What was it, Adler? You want to tell us? No? Okay. Anyway, what do you think, Dr. Orchard?
So you've probably heard of the moral dilemma questions, like there's a trolley going down a rail and it's out of control. Have you heard of these?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Some of us probably, but go ahead.
So it's quite interesting so these are hypothetical situations. So it's kind of a story that we tell you, and then you have to decide what you would do if that happened to you. So there's a trolley going down a track, and the track, there are 5 men, or people actually, working on the track, and they don't notice the trolley coming towards them. And they're all going to be killed if they don't, if they get hit by the trolley. So 5 people. But you notice that you're standing right beside a switch, so you can make the trolley go onto a different track. And there is one person standing on that track, and they don't notice the trolley either. So the question is, would you pull the switch to save the 5 people, but the one person dies, or would you let the trolley go, kill the 5 people, and save the one person?
It depends who the one person is.
Yeah, I would probably just yell to the one person and save the 5 people.
Yeah, this is a hypothetical situation, though. So let's say they can't hear you because they all have earmuffs on. So anyway, you don't have to answer now, but there's an interesting sequence of questions that you can. Most people say they would pull the switch, the one person dies, which is really sad, but at least you save 5 people. But there are different ways to ask that question in which it's exactly the same number of people live and die, but depending on how the question's asked, people change their minds. And so that's a really interesting insight into how people make these moral judgments and how people decide these things. So I would encourage you to look into those studies.
Excellent.
Moral judgment studies? Moral judgment?
Yeah. I mean, if you just Google moral trolley, whatever, it's all over the place. These are very, very famous experiments.
Okay, we will do that.
Okay, great.
That sounds like a good place to leave for today. I can't believe it's already 11:30. But thank you very much, Dr. Orchard, for joining us today for this PIR live event. And thank you.
It was my pleasure. I had a great time.
Me as well. Thanks to the grade 5s for joining us.
Thank you.